Okay, so today on Monday morning, I know it can be hard to do math Monday morning, but I promise you today's not going to be too difficult, okay? Let's get started. We are going to do Module 2, Lesson 13 today. And it says for your learning goal, you're going to use what you know about whole number multiplication. Ooh, we're back to whole number multiplication. Let me ask you a question. Was decimal multiplication harder than whole number multiplication? It's just the same, except in the end you have to put a decimal point in, right? So it's really the same thing. But today we're going to be using what we know about multiplication to express equivalent measurements. Let's talk about what those words mean. When I say to express, that really means to write. And what does equivalent mean? Equal, yeah, equal or the same. And we know what measurements are, okay? So we're going to use what we know about multiplication today to be changing one unit of measurement to another unit, but keeping the value the same. Does that make sense? Great. So let's first talk about the problem of the day. So on this, now you have 4 sections in your 2 pages, right? Yeah. And we're going to keep notes about what we measure, like when we measure things in the world, what are some things we measure? And then what kinds of units do we use to measure them, okay? So what's one thing that we can measure, Jaden?
Liquid.
Okay, volume. Let's write volume in this first one. One thing that we measure is volume, and volume tells you how much liquid or how much stuff can fit into a container. So this water bottle, however much water can fit inside this water bottle, that's its volume, right? Or this cup here. However much we can fit inside this cup, that's its volume. Is that something we measure? Yeah. What are some kinds of units we use to measure volume? And we won't write them down yet, but let's talk about them. Sanjana? Liters. Sonatin?
Cubic meters.
Cubic meters. Jonathan?
Gallons.
Gallons. Akshay?
Pints.
Pints, yeah. When you guys are cooking, does it ever tell you to use 2 cups or half a cup? Yeah. Right? We use cups because you're measuring how much flour or how much sugar to put into your recipe. Good. What's something else that we measure? We can measure how much stuff, which is volume, but what's something else we might measure? RF?
Space.
Length? Yeah. So if I'm trying to find out the distance from that wall to where I'm standing, that's a length, right? Or a distance. So let's write that in this next one over here. We can measure length, or sometimes it's called distance. Okay? And what kinds of units do we use to measure distance? There's lots of different kinds of units. Martin? We could use meters and all the different forms of meters. Sure. Rohan? Feet. What else can we use to measure distance? Ani? Inches or yards or miles. You got it. Okay. What's something else that we measure? Gia? Mass. Or if you're finding the mass of something, that's the same thing as finding its weight. Okay, so we can write mass and weight. What kinds of units do we use to measure mass and weight? Marvin?
We can use pounds.
Pounds, sure. Nithya? We can use grams and all its different kinds of grams. Very good. Finally, there's other things we measure. So, and one in particular that we're going to be talking about is time. How much time has passed? What kinds of units do we use to measure time? Turjo?
You can use hours or weeks.
Hours, weeks, months, minutes, seconds, years, centuries, right? There's all different kinds of units we could use. Now, for each kind of thing that we measure, there's 2 different systems we use in this country. Okay, we already talked about one of them, which is metric, and the other one is called customary. Okay, watch before you do anything. Under where you wrote each word, you're going to divide it into 2 columns like this, except for the time one. The time one you're not going to. Okay, go ahead and do that. And the reason why we're dividing each section into 2 is because there's 2 systems. So in small writing, I want you to write metric on the left-hand side of all of them. And time, again, is on its own, so it doesn't have metric. And on the other side, on the right, you're going to write customary. We're first going to be talking about the customary units of length, okay? And as we mentioned, we use, in the customary units, there's inches, feet, yards, and miles, okay? And I want us to think about what we already know about these conversions and write them down, okay? So, okay, in the customary units, these are the different units we use for length. So, how many inches are in 1 foot, everyone? Good, so go ahead and write 12 inches equals 1 foot. And then how many feet are in 1 yard? 3 feet in 1 yard. Good. These are things you should already know, but we're going to write them down so that if you ever forget, you have a chart to look at, okay? How many feet are in 1 mile? This is a tricky one, but you have to memorize it. Sanatin?
5,280 feet are in a mile.
5,280 feet. Very good. Then how many yards are in 1 mile? How many yards are in 1 mile? You could take 5,280 feet and divide that by what number to find 3? Very good. So go ahead and figure that out if you don't know it yet. Okay, so once again, you're writing these down so you have a reference guide, but these are facts that you should know in your head, okay? In the customary system, we have ounces, pounds, and tons, and therefore, let's write down these conversions. Do you guys know how many ounces are in 1 pound?
Yeah.
The answer is 16. Good. See? You need to know these facts. There's 16 ounces in 1 pound. So if I tell you that something weighs 18 ounces, is that more or less than 1 pound?
More.
Yeah, that would be 1 pound, and how many ounces? 2 ounces. Good. How many pounds are in 1 ton? Turjo?
2,000.
Very good. So write down that there are 2,000 pounds in 1 ton. In the customary system, to measure volume or how much stuff can fit inside a container, we use cups, pints, quarts, and gallons. Okay? The first thing you need to know is that there are 2 cups in 1 pint, and there are 2 pints in 1 quart. But then there are 4 quarts in 1 gallon. So let me ask you a question. If there are 4 quarts in 1 gallon, how many pints are there in 1 gallon? Arav? 8. And how many cups are there in 1 gallon? Kish? 16. Good. And here's a way for you to remember how to do it, okay? So that information's still there. But in your customary units of volume part, I want you to draw a giant G like this. Okay? Now, how many quarts can fit inside 1 gallon? 4. So draw 4 Q's to show that there are 4 quarts inside a gallon. Do you see how it fits? 2 in the top row and 2 in the bottom row?
Yeah.
How many pints are there in each quart? How many? 2. So in each Q, draw 2P. Do you see how they fit kind of nicely in there? Okay. And then therefore, in the gallon, how many pints do you see altogether? How many blue P's fit inside that G? 8. So how many pints are there in 1 gallon? Good. Now how many cups fit inside each pint? 2. So inside the little circle part, draw 2 C's of each P. See how they fit in there like that? Okay, so let me ask you a question then. How many cups are there in 1 pint? Inside each P, how many C's are there? 2. So how many cups are there in each pint? How many cups are there in each pint? 2. How many cups are there in each quart? How many C's do you see in each Q? 4. There's 4 cups in 1 quart. Okay. How many cups are there in 1 gallon? How many C's do you see all together in the whole G, in the whole gallon? 16. Very good. So when we measure time, we can say that there's 60 minutes an hour. There's also 60 seconds in 1 minute, right? Okay. How many hours are there in 1 day? 24 hours in 1 day. How many days are there in 1 week? 7 days in a week. How many weeks are there in 1 month? 4 weeks in 1 month. Good. How many weeks are there in 1 year? 52. And how many months are there in 1 year? 12 months. How many days are there in a year? Yeah, there's 365 days in 1 year. Now, when I asked you guys these questions, did you have to go look it up and say, wait, let me look at my chart to see how many minutes there are in 1 hour? How did you know? How did you know? How come when I say how many weeks are there in 1 year, you just said 52? You didn't have to flip to a calendar and count them. You didn't have to flip to somewhere in your chart to take a look. How come you just knew that there was 52 weeks in 1 year? Did you just memorize it before? Yeah. So this is what you need to do. You need to know how many cups there are in 1 gallon, or how many quarts there are in 1 gallon, or how many inches there are in 1 yard. These are things you just need to memorize, just like for these units of time that you've already memorized. We're going to look at this blue problem first. So write in your notebook, convert from meters to centimeters. Now, watch me first, okay? 4.5 meters. We're trying to write an equivalent expression. I want to say what meters is, but I want to say it in what units instead? centimeters, okay? So here's the exact process you're going to go through. Watch me first. Pencils down. Pencils done. You're not going to take notes right now. Watch me and listen to me, and then you'll have a chance to take notes, okay? 4.5 meters. That's the same thing as 4.5 copies of how many meters? Of 1 meter. Do you see that? Okay. I want you to notice that I wrote how many copies, and this unit, meters, is the same as the meters that I already had originally. Okay. I also want you to notice that I put the 1 meter in parentheses. The parentheses don't do anything mathematically. It just helps me keep that in its own group. Okay. And this is the part I'm going to be looking to see if you do it exactly this way. Now, that's equal. Do you guys agree so far that 4.5 meters is the same as 4.5 times 1 meter?
Yeah.
Good. So that is going to be equal to 4.5 copies of, and in parentheses, I'm going to write the new units. Okay, I want to change it to centimeters. Now, I'm going to write what's equivalent. 1 meter is the same as how many centimeters? 100. Okay. So in the parentheses parts, I'm writing things that have equal value. Do you agree that 1 meter is the same as 100 centimeters?
Yeah.
So therefore, is 4.5 times 1 meter the same thing as 4.5 times 100 centimeters?
Yeah.
Yeah, so far everything's equal. I haven't changed anything. The only thing I changed was I went from the units that was given to me, and in the second line, I changed it to the units that I'm trying to get it to. Do you see that? Yeah. Okay. Now I'm ready to finish my conversions. I only have to multiply 4.5 times 100, and I know when I do that, I move the decimal point 2 spots to the right. So it's going to equal 450 centimeters. Okay, the point, once again, the part I really want you to see is that I'm writing 4.5, which came from here, copies of 1 meter. I'm keeping the unit the same, and I'm putting that in parentheses so that I can write an equivalent with the new units. Does that make sense? And then I do my multiplication, and my final answer also has units. When it says write a statement, that means you're going to put the answer you find into a sentence to explain what you did. Okay, so let's take a look. It says a newborn giraffe weighs about 65 kilograms. How much does it weigh in grams? So it's asking us to convert from kilograms to grams, right? So it's basically asking us 65 kilograms is the same as how many grams. So we're going to start off by writing what we know. What units did they give us? Kilograms. How many kilograms? Okay, so we're going to write the math sentence ourselves. 65 kilograms is equal to 65 copies of 1 kilogram. And the abbreviation for kilogram is kg. Okay, now do you see how it's exactly what we did before? And so this is equal to 65 copies of, and we're trying to change it to what? So it's some number of grams. And I want what's in my parentheses to be equivalent. So 1 kilogram is the same as how many grams, everyone? 1,000. Good. Okay, and then I just do the multiplication. 65 times 1,000, of course, is 65,000, right? Okay, so now that I'm done with the math part, I need to think about how to write a statement. So I could say the giraffe is 65,000 grams, which is equivalent to 65 kilograms.